We spent a lot of time figuring out what are we going to do if we lose communication with Earth, which is a very real possibility. Probably won't happen, but it's plausible that we can't talk to Earth and we're having trouble with the spacecraft. How are we going? What are the bare basics to give us a fighting chance to still be breathing and to hit somewhere on the planet and ideally hit the Pacific Ocean? Obviously, I've had that conversation with my wife and my children. Still a little bit more work to do there. What I want most is for them to know when I launch, because that will be a very acute, stressful moment, that they're going to be okay. If we have a loss of crew on the mission, that, it'll be tough. And they'll go through a process and mourning, but we're going to set it up so that they're going to be okay.
Jeremy Hansen knows the risks that come with traveling into deep space. He talks openly about how astronauts accept they might not return home. But he's ready.
Welcome to our home.
And he's done pretty much everything humanly possible to prepare for this mission. It's a moment Hansen has been dreaming about since he first fell in love with space as a kid, growing up on his family farm outside London, Ontario. In just a few weeks, if all goes according to plan, a rocket will carry Hansen and his 3 crewmates to a place where humanity hasn't gone in more than 50 years, orbiting the moon.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Artemis I.
There it goes. That's awesome.
Until now, this is the closest Hansen has been to traveling to space, watching the unmanned Artemis I mission launch from the lawn of the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Oh my God, great ride. Oh, there it is. Solids are pointed at us now. You can feel it in your chest. Oh, that's
Soon, Hansen will be on board that spacecraft, becoming the first Canadian to travel beyond Earth's orbit. I caught up with Hansen at the Houston Museum of National Science to re-watch that launch in the Burt Baker Planetarium and to hear about a journey that began on his family farm and will soon take him near the moon.
So as you watch this, and I'm sure you've seen it many times, you saw it in person, but as you watch this, what do you think?
Well, I think something that's interesting is a major risk on this rocket is, and it was like this for the shuttle, there's a lot of redundancy built in, but both of those solids have to light. If one of them doesn't, one lights and one doesn't, it's really bad. Really, really bad.
So as you see that, do you feel, are you impressed? Are you intimidated?
Yeah, I don't know. It makes me giggle. I don't know if that's a nervous laugh or what. But I don't know. There's just something magical about rockets launching. This is a big rocket. And those solids, the white solid rocket boosters on the side, they are serious business. There's a lot of power there. And the one thing about solids is they are a very rough ride. They cause a lot of vibration. And so we don't really know what it's going to feel like for us, but we anticipate it'll be pretty bumpy.
So for all the simulations you've done and all the studying you've done, you still don't really know exactly what these moments are going to feel like.
No, we don't know what it'll feel like at all, really. That's kind of the magical part of being the first humans to do something, is that human experience. What was it like to ride it? Yeah, that'll be neat to share that story.
Your resume is both extraordinary and ordinary. The ordinary part is you grew up on a farm outside London, Ontario. As a kid, what did you dream about?
I dreamed about 3 things I remember as a kid. One, being a farmer, like my father. I spent a lot of time plowing our living room carpet with my toy tractor and cultivator, and I dreamed about flying airplanes. I don't really know why. I'd never even been in an airplane, but I was really attracted to that. And I saw an F-18 fly at the London International Air Show, and I was like, oh gosh, I want to do that.
Well,
And I dreamed about flying in space. I saw an image of Neil Armstrong, or maybe it was Buzz, but one of those two standing on the moon under the article Neil Armstrong in Encyclopedia A, and I can still see that page in my brain when I think back to it. And I turned my treehouse into a spaceship, and I started going on space missions in my imagination, and I just never looked back.
Okay, that's the perfect NASA story. It's true?
It's true, yeah. There's, strangely enough, we can't find any pictures of this treehouse, but my dad built it. And then inside, once I sort of developed this dream of flying in space, I put a lot of effort into renovating it to turn it into a spaceship. So I made a control, I found a hinge and some wood, and I made sort of like an airplane yoke that I could move around in there. I had two of them, I had one on the left and one on the right. And the part I love the most is I found these old circuit breakers in the barn, and I mounted them in there, so I had real switches that I could throw in this treehouse.
If only there was a picture of that.
I know, I really wish there was, but there's one in here.
The path from that treehouse to where you are now is such a Canadian path, and let's talk about one of those steps, Air Cadets.
No.
Was that an important stepping stone for you?
One of the most important things, life-changing for me. I was pretty shy, young farm boy. I felt I was very reserved. I had a small friend group growing up in the country, but Air Cadets really pushed me outside my comfort zone. And I had this passion for flying, and that's what kept me in there. Air Cadets was hard and not always fun. I think that's a really important aspect for people to understand. You show up, you're in this squadron of cadets, you've got to get a uniform issued. Now I'm ironing my pants at night, and I'm polishing my boots while I'm watching Star Trek on TV. And those are not fun things. And then you go and you show up and on your parade night, and you're marching around and people are barking orders at you, and you're like, what? There's nothing fun about this. What am I doing here? But there's this carrot that they're going to teach me about flying. And so I keep going back. And then I'm learning to fly an airplane. I've got a glider pilot license. I mean, when you fly an airplane for the first time by yourself, even if it's a little glider, that's a big confidence booster for you.
Eventually, Jeremy Hansen did find his way into the cockpit of a CF-18 fighter jet. For most people, that would be the pinnacle. But Hansen's sights were set even higher, outer space. And in 2009, he took a significant step towards that dream.
They just found this out in the last couple of days, so they're a very, very elite group of Canadians.
Out of more than 5,000 candidates, Jeremy Hansen was selected with David Saint-Jacques. They became astronauts 2 years later. Saint-Jacques was eventually selected to fly to the International Space Station in 2019. And after a lot of training and a lot of patience, Hansen finally got his call.
We are going to the moon for all humanity. We are Artemis.
Let's talk about the training for Artemis II. Did it begin basically once that announcement was made, or how long have you been preparing?
It does. I mean, you're always training as an astronaut. You're always developing your skill sets. We have a really neat, it's sort of a haphazard program, but we take advantage of opportunities to put astronauts in challenging situations to continue to develop that skill set of being creative problem solvers, good teamwork skills, which is critically important. Communication skills, listening skills are just they're the hardest thing in life. And they're the hardest thing in spaceflight, and so practicing that stuff in challenging environments is really useful for us. So you're always doing these things, and you're always on this path of training. But when it was announced that I would fly an Artemis II, we did start some of the more, I guess, almost textbook training, sitting down with the systems experts and starting to learn the systems just a little bit. Our simulators were not ready yet. This is a development program. It's the first time we put humans on that vehicle and fly them to space. So on Artemis I, it was mission control sending the cues to the vehicle. Okay, now we want you to do this, and it'll go through its automation cycle. But when there's crew on there, the crew has to be able to sort of manage that automation, sort of like managing an autopilot on an airliner. But then you're also not quite satisfied with that when you're out 400,000 kilometers from Earth, that if something fails and you're not able to get the automation to do what you want, that you're just going to give up and die. Mm-hmm. And so you want some manual capability to try and save your lives. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out, what are we going to do if we lose communication with Earth, which is a very real possibility. Probably won't happen, but it's plausible that we can't talk to Earth, and we're having trouble with the spacecraft, how are we going, what are the bare basics to give us a fighting chance to still be breathing and to hit somewhere on the planet, and ideally hit the Pacific Ocean.
Let's talk a little bit about the risks involved here. How do you manage that?
I think like you do with, all the challenging aspects of life, there has to be some acceptance that this is a potential outcome.
Okay, if I may interrupt a little bit, yeah, there are challenging aspects in life, but we're not getting into a spaceship where I believe the risks are far greater than anything I'm going to face in my life, for example.
I don't know that we see it that way, but maybe it's because astronauts, I think, are eternal optimists. Maybe we are a little bit optimistic about things, but there are very real risks for sure, but they're well managed. And like we fight, we work so hard to try to characterize the risks and then come up with plans to mitigate them. What would likely get us more likely than not is something we failed to imagine, but I'm prepared that it might happen. And obviously I've had that conversation with my wife and my children. Still a little bit more work to do there. And what I want most is for them to know when I launch, because that will be a very acute, stressful moment, that they're going to be okay. If we have a loss of crew on the mission, that, it'll be tough. And they'll go through a process and mourning, but we're going to set it up so that they're going to be okay.
I know you're not a casual, like you don't feel casual about it. I know you're very analytical, but is that how your brain kind of processes this stuff in a very logical, sort of compartmentalized way?
Yeah, I think you have to. And for me, it's just beneficial in life in general. I mean, these aren't the only things I'm managing. I'm a father of 3 kids, and there's just a lot of things. And I want my children to know that challenges come up in life, loss comes up in life. Lots of people deal with this. There's a lot of really bad things that are happening in the world, for example, and lives are being lost. And this is a real part of being a human. And what's important to know is that, that'll be hard and challenging and sad, super sad. And but then you have to know it's going to go on, and you can still create a joyful, positive future, still respect that loss, and still cherish those moments. But you have to move forward, and that's just important for me that I know in my heart that they know that. That's what I need them to do if this does happen.
So through the simulations, you've gone through some worst case scenarios like losing all contact with Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've talked to airline pilots before who say that some of the stuff they go through in the simulation, they come out of that exhausted and highly stressed. And it's, so if it ever were to happen in real life, they feel like they are prepared for that. Do you feel that kind of physical and mental toll after some of those simulations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We've been doing some log sims, so a couple of variations of it where the one we did this past week was, coming in to do the translunar injection. So we've spent a day in Earth orbit now, and we're coming back towards Earth. We're going to go by at about 100 nautical miles, and then we're going to burn the engines and head out to the moon. And we had some malfunctions that stopped us from doing that burn. So then we had another day to go around the planet and try to figure out how to fix that and then do the burn. We lived that whole evolution out on the Johnson Space Center in the simulator, going to another building with beds to sleep, because we're not floating in our simulator. We can't just sleep there. But we lived it like real time. The other one we do is we've done a number of these the day of launch. So we get up roughly 8 hours before launch. And then, prior to launch, we'll spend about around 4 hours laying on our backs, sitting there waiting for launch. It's just the way it works with this vehicle, which is pretty tiring, just sitting there in that spacesuit doing that. And then you launch, and then you have a whole lot more work to do as soon as you get to space. So that day is like roughly 18 hours of being on. It's tiring.
In terms of some of the things you've done in preparation, you mentioned the simulator, but you've done underwater training. I've seen you described as an aquanaut. Mm-hmm. What's that?
Definitely one of the coolest life experiences. We historically have sent astronauts, small groups of astronauts, to live on the ocean floor in this Aquarius habitat off of Key Largo, Florida, because it's like going to space. You go to this new environment, you're underwater, you're in like a little mini space station, but then on top of that, you get to go out and do these simulated spacewalks on the ocean floor with like a helmet on, and you're diving, and it's just so extraordinary. One of the other aspects of it is really useful for us is it's actually very dangerous. You're a saturated diver, so anyone that knows anything about diving, you go down, there's a limited amount of time, and then you have to come up, and if you come up too quickly, you'll get the bends, these nitrogen bubbles in your blood. Well, we're down there for a week. We're completely saturated. So if you have a problem down there and you just decide to go to the surface, you're dead. And so you have this different mindset when you're down there. It's like everything is higher risk. If I get an injury, I can't just get to the surface in the next hour and get to a hospital. We're really stuck down here. It's going to take us the better part of a day to get somebody safely to the surface. And it's just a different way of living and thinking and dealing with stress. So it's really useful. But it's not space, and so there's this amazing marine life there. And you get to recognize some of the fish and their behaviors, the things they do every day. Like you and I have routines. We get up every morning and do the same thing. These fish do the exact same thing. Like every morning at 11, there was these yellow fish at the window, and I could set a clock to it. That's just what they did at 11. They came and they hung out at the window, and I guess they're watching us. I don't know what they're doing, but they're there every day at 11.
And caves, being in caves also were part of your training? Explain that to me.
Very similar rationale for doing that. A hostile, dangerous environment, teaching astronauts how to cave, something that you're probably not familiar with. So learning new skill sets, going to an austere environment, putting your teamwork skills into practice. So I spent about a week with a group of astronauts learning how to be a caver, learning the skills, the rope skills for going up and down, squeezing through tight spaces, techniques for that, swimming in the caves. And then we spent another week where we just went deeper and deeper into the cave system every day. We slept in there, we ate in there, we didn't come out at all. And we were exploring, we were mapping, we were collecting science samples for real scientists, doing real proxy science for people. It's the most dangerous thing I've ever done. It is super, super risky. And that's great, because you can mitigate that risk, but you have got to be on. Like you can't take a moment off, because you can kill yourself in a heartbeat. And when you're in your sleeping bag in your tent, yeah, you can rest. But when you are out moving around in the cave system, you have got to be switched on.
There were 50 reasons I could never have been an astronaut, and that's probably number one. Like, would not go down into the cave. I mean, the experiences that you've had, and you haven't even gone on this mission yet. The things you've done in your training. I mean, you were talking to me before we started about going to the emergency room here in Houston. Tell me about that.
So of course, when you're days away from home on a mission to the moon, if you have an emergency, you're just stuck. A medical emergency, you are stuck with it. And so if I smash my head, exercising, and I sort of get catawonky and I smash my head into the displays in the vehicle and I slice it open, it's either going to be Reed, Christine, or Victor who are doing the stitches. And so we go to a teaching hospital under a lot of supervision, and we learn to do these things for real on patients. And so just demystifying this stuff, drawing blood, giving IVs, doing stitches, fixing teeth, and even intubation. And so having gone and done that is really helpful. Something I never thought I would do.
Yeah, no kidding.
It was not why I got into this job, but very grateful for the physicians and nurses who have given us those skill sets so that we know we can get it done.
Here's a remarkable statistic, at least to me. In the history of humankind, only 24 people have ever gone beyond Earth's orbit. Mm-hmm. And you're going to join that group. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. The way that I frame that makes me super proud is Canada is going to be the second country in the world to send a human into deep space, and we did earn it. Of course, I have great gratitude to the United States for carving out a program that makes space for a country like Canada to share our gifts, and that's a great example of collaboration. And then on the other side of that coin is we earned it with our Canadian genius. I'm super proud of that.
It's interesting you talk about collaboration, because I know you're in a bit of a bubble here at the Space Center, but you may have heard there's a little tension between Canada and the United States these days, mainly on the issue of trade, politics. And here you are, part of a crew with Americans working at a facility in the United States. Do you feel any of that tension at all?
The global struggles are obviously, very apparent to me. I listen to it with great intent, something that, concerns me, because I do believe, humanity's ultimate goal needs to be collaboration. And the 8 billion of us on our planet, that's where we need to always be heading, is how do we get to the point where we're all using our energy for positive things, helping one another out, lifting one another up. So I do watch this with great interest. One of the ways I keep it in perspective is we have a lot of water under the bridge that is positive. And yes, there are some struggles today, but I just always reminded about the great examples. And I kind of live in that all the time. Here at the Johnson Space Center, where we are this international community collaborating to do extraordinary things, some things that have never been done before, some that obviously we have sent humans back to the moon before. I know not everyone believes that, but that is true. And we have done that before, but we're doing things differently this time. So we are taking on some new challenges, and they're pretty extraordinary challenges. And it's because we just kind of take the flags off and we show up as humans just trying to do our best.
So as we sit here now in Houston, as the Artemis II mission draws closer, and you think back to your journey, the ups and some downs as well, as you reflect on that, what have you learned about yourself?
Something that I think is really helpful, I try to instill on my kids. We as humans are our own worst enemies. We create the struggles in our own minds and our own bodies, the energy in our bodies, with things like expectations. We think this is going to happen, and then that doesn't happen, and it causes an impact. And we talk a lot about anxiety in our youth today, and that's a very real thing, something that I've always been concerned about with my kids, and I realize that we all feel these same things. And so something that I've been trying to communicate to people is my methodology of dealing with these things when they come up, and they come up, sometimes they're minor and sometimes they're major, but is sort of do three things. It's to, first of all, acknowledge that something's going on. I'm feeling down about this, or this is not what I expect to happen. It just doesn't feel good. So I need to acknowledge that there's something there. The next phase of that is to accept. You need to accept, okay, well, this is now my reality. I didn't want this to happen, but it is happening, and so I need to move through this. And then I need to shift my mindset to, okay, if this is my new reality, now I just need to create a solution. And that's just an important way to tackle life. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I know I'm going to get in the positive. I'm going to start asking for help. I'm going to start accepting help. And I'm going to start believing that maybe I can create a positive solution.
The success of Artemis II, what will that mean for you as a person?
Yeah, tough one, Ian. It's interesting to think about. Artemis II is this great challenge for me. The journey to the launch is extraordinary in itself. I'm just having such a great time working with this team and figuring things out. Launching on the mission, flying around the moon is going to be pretty extraordinary. Seeing the Earth from the perspective of the moon, it's going to touch my soul. I know it's going to. It's just going to reaffirm something I already believe, that, it's incredible that we live on this rock hurtling through space with this tiny atmosphere, and there's 8 billion of us. And I already know that what's important for our future is that we just start to lean into the fact that every human has equal value, and respecting one another is the most important thing that we could do. And we have to get to the point where we are working together, lifting each other up. There is enough on this planet for us all to live well. If we do it properly and we leverage technology, we can all live joyful lives here. And we're failing at that. And when I fly around the moon and our crew takes pictures and videos of Earth, that will hopefully be like one drop in the bucket where people will pause for a moment and look at that and say, we could do better. It won't fix it, but it will have been a positive contribution. And then I'll come back, and Artemis II will have been one of my life experiences that I'll be very grateful for. And then I'll try to keep using my energy to contribute to a positive outcome for the world.